Windows 10. How many of you have been to, this will be our third webinar or our third luncheonar specifically on Windows 10. How many of you have been to either of the first two we did? Thank you all. I'm really glad to hear that you were there. The first couple that we did, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate you pointing it out. We're really much more concerned about the product. Okay, the product has been out. It's been, I think October was when it first went beta with the testing program and the like, and I think October was our first webinar or luncheonar that we did on it. We've been working on it, and I've had, my tablet has been Windows 10 since then, and it's been a pretty solid product. So now they're going to release it. This is a huge, huge change for Microsoft, and a lot of it has nothing to do with the product, but how they're promoting it and how they're pushing it. You're going to see some lessons that they learned from Vista in terms of how they're working with the resellers, and it's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening. Now, how many of you guys here are corporate IT? Okay, cool. And how many of you are just home users or the like, and how many of you are professional users, but just for you or a couple of people? Okay, cool. You need to be aware of what's going on, and there are some actions you need to either take or prevent from being taken between now and July 29th. And we'll talk about that. So what's happening is all your platforms belong to us. Anybody remember that? But the idea is that Microsoft is taking their whole concept of having one product, one interface, even to that next level. You know, they pretty much introduced that with the server, with 2008. The server 2012 R2, Windows 8, all similar look and feel. It's basically, we're now to the point where it's the same code base and everything. So the experience is going to be different a little bit because the real estate that you have on a phone is very different than the real estate that you have on a full screen or a multiple screen desktop or server. So what you can do is going to be a little bit modified for that, but otherwise they're going to be trying to make it as seamless as possible, and especially in terms of how you manage your data, so that the data can be equally accessible from whatever device you've got, as long as the security is there, and as long as that device is powerful enough to do whatever you need to do with it, with that information. So we're going to talk about what's released, a little bit about the new stuff, the free upgrade, and talk about upgrading the old stuff and the like. Here are, because Microsoft loves to have different versions and different editions, and they love to make sure that it's not the same as the last version, because that would be confusing. So they first started off with the Windows 8 to Windows 10, which again, in my opinion, was done because they wanted to make sure that coders who tested for a Windows Space 9, and they did that to prevent something from happening if it was Windows 95 or 98 for older software. If they had Windows 9 instead, it would treat it as if it was an older version of Windows. And my suspicion, I still think they spent probably 6 months trying to work their way around that, and somebody said, well, why don't we just call it Windows 10 and we're done? Oh, okay. So, but we've got all these. They're not all being released on the 29th. And they're not all being released in the same way. Okay? Here's the dates. We are no longer beta testers. We haven't been for a while. We are Windows Insider Program members. Yes, we are WIPs. So what's happening is on 29 July is the official release to manufacturing is happening in kind of a quasi sort of way. But on July 29th, the Windows Home and Pro will be out there. And the Windows Insider Program members will also have the ability to upgrade. And we will be able to upgrade from the Insider, from the beta test to the full version, is my understanding at this point. Okay? It won't be till August 1st that if you have a volume license, software assurance, open value, all that kind of stuff, it won't be available till then. And there's a difference between how you would approach an upgrade, depending upon, and if you're not involved with volume licensing, You're probably working with a smaller organization alike, don't worry about it. To be determined, embedded and mobile. And this is going to be interesting because, first of all, the embedded, that's essentially where you have a dedicated device, an ATM is your classic case, or machines that are out on a shop floor. There's not a date for those. Mobile is going to be really interesting. And there's a couple reasons why mobile is going to be interesting. First of all is because it's really, Microsoft doesn't have as much control over that as the world would like you to think. It's as much to do with the carriers and the manufacturers of the phone. But there will be an update available to Windows 8.1 phone users. Okay, you will be able to upgrade your phone. Okay? So even if Microsoft turns around and says, hey, August 15th, it's available, that doesn't mean necessarily that your phone will then have the availability to upgrade it. That's going to be up to your carrier. And when do they make it available through their network? Okay? OEM products. If you look at a lot of the releases, and this is actually the week for the Microsoft annual partner program, or partner meeting. And so there's literally a lot of stuff that's happening this week as far as the announcements and all that kind of fun stuff. So if you see something online that contradicts what I'm saying, I'm lying to you on purpose. But what's happening is there has not been a promise by many vendors to have product lines releasing on July 29th. In fact, I'm not sure they haven't gotten yet the RTM, the actual final version to them delivered to actually start getting them ready. So the machines are not necessarily going to hit the floor running. Now you may remember with Vista, or you may have gone through therapy and had it removed. You may remember with Vista that right before Vista was released, there was a huge battle about, there was two actually, it was originally going to be, it's Vista Ready. Vista Ready meant that the hardware was there to run the operating system. Because it was a new operating system, therefore you needed more hardware. You notice that's not the case anymore. But it was that way, so they had Vista Ready. HP bought into it hook, line, and sinker. They came out with their new products. They were Vista ready. Dell didn't. Dell balked. And at the last minute, Microsoft gave in, and they came out with Vista Capable. Vista Capable meant, yeah, you could run it, but I wouldn't. But the difference wasn't well communicated. So what ended up happening is people bought, Capable, Ready, Capable's less, I'll go with Capable. I'm okay with Capable. And what ended up happening is a lot of people ended up buying really underpowered workstations and hardware. And that was only part, but that was a big part of what the issue was with Microsoft and Vista. Now they're pretty much, since then I should say, with Windows 7, with Vista to Windows 7, there really wasn't much of an increased hardware requirement. Okay? 7 to 8, even less. And in fact, 7 to 8 actually optimized, so hardware that would run on 7 would run better on 8. Yeah. And 8 to 8.1, same too, because there's so much indexing going on, and Microsoft got better and better with the indexing. Windows 10 takes a little bit of a step back. On the one side of the fence, the stuff that you're used to doing on Windows 10 will run on the same hardware as Windows 8, and it'll probably run better. But there are certain functions, mostly in the security world and in the voice recognition world, that if you don't have the right level of security as far as the camera goes, because it's supposed to recognize your face, well, if you don't have a good enough camera to do that, it's not going to. Similarly, same thing with a microphone. If you're going to use Cortana to do some voice recognition and you've got a lousy microphone, well, it worked fine for what Windows 8.1 did, but it's not going to work for Windows 10 because Windows 10 wants to do a lot more. Okay? So it's going to be interesting. But the key thing to and we're going to talk about this in some detail, is July 29th. Microsoft has announced, have everybody heard about Microsoft making Windows 10 free? For a lot of people. Notice I didn't say everybody. For a lot of people who own Windows 7 and 8.1. Notice I didn't say everybody. Okay? But they're going to make that a free upgrade. But there are catches to that. By the way, if anybody has any questions or comments or anything, feel free. So, okay. One thing I want to brief you on a little bit is Microsoft is starting to use a couple of terms, and they're using the term experience. And the experience is essentially the end user experience, is how that person does things, what they're able to do, all of that kind of fun stuff. And we say that instead of interface. We used to say interface because that's how the user communicated with it and blah, 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 and we thought strictly in those terms. Experience is really how satisfied and what's the ease of the user in terms of them being able to do whatever the heck they were touching their computer to do. So it may be a complicated thing, but it is a complicated thing they're trying to do, but the system helps them and supports them as much as possible or gives them as much flexibility in terms of how they do it. There's two experiences. One is the core experience. The core experience is every version of Windows. And for right now, I'm going to talk strictly on the desktop or tablet. So I'm not talking about the embedded or the mobile at this point. So you have the core experience, which everybody has that no matter what version. And then you have the business, which is really the enterprise and the EDU. And those are some of the additional stuff. The direct access, Windows to Go, App Locker, branch cache, group policy. And you know, these are business level stuff. Why is that? Microsoft is making the push to get businesses to stop just buying Windows with their computer and that's it. So what they're doing is they're taking a lot of their, what they would call enterprise level, whether it be small to large organizations, they're taking a lot of that functionality and they're putting it exclusively into their enterprise product. Their enterprise product is essentially where you buy a volume license. And a volume license is essentially where you're paying Microsoft X number of dollars per license. And there's ways to do this as a subscription. There's ways to do it as you're literally renting the software. There's ways to do it where you spread it out over 3 years. There's all these ways to do it. But they want to make this so this is a recurring revenue stream for them. Okay? And similarly, one other thing I want to mention is the enterprise and the EDU is the exact same product. It's enterprise. EDU is just simply purchased for schools, educators. So really, if you're a business person, really from a business standpoint, you're interested in pro and enterprise. Those are the two that are going to be in your business or organization. Are there exceptions? Yeah, sure. If you get mobile devices, embedded devices. You're not doing home. And you might do, again, if you do the other stuff, that's absolutely great, but this is where the majority of the conversation is going to rely. Go back and forth on. Reserve. To get the free upgrade, you have to reserve by July 29th. July 29th is the last day, or actually, I'm going to say July 28th. July 28th is the last day to register for the free upload, or upgrade. Okay? Now, you will have 1 year to actually do it. So it doesn't necessarily mean, yay, I'm getting it the next day. They will, as of July 29th, send alerts and updates to people as to when they can upgrade. And it will, at this point, I believe, actually download the upgrade automatically. So it won't say, hey, do you want to upgrade now? You go, yeah, okay, I'll download 3 gig. Because, it'll take a while. Instead, it'll download it and then tell you, you're ready. Are you ready? For those of you who are patching your desktops, there actually is a Windows update, and we'll have a link to it in a little bit, that actually will install a little tool, and it's a reminder that will remind you that you need to reserve your upgrade. Now, for those of you who do not control updates for your organization through WSUS, but simply have update set automatically to happen, this could be a problem. Because your end users could be reserving Windows 10 and deciding when to upgrade to Windows 10. That may not be what you want to have happen on a particular day. Yes, sir.
What's the little icon that I got in the tray? Is that
That's it?
That's it.
Yep, it's over on the bottom right.
That will remind me to do it by the 29th? Or?
Yes. Yeah, so you go in and you reserve.
I haven't clicked it yet.
Okay.
It's been there for a while.
Cool. Yeah, there's a site you can go to right here that you can just go to and do the reserve. Okay? You can also use that link that'll also, it'll also, I believe, it'll test your workstation and see whether or not the hardware and software looks appropriate. Yes, sir?
If you're running 8.1 Pro, will you be getting a reminder? Because I haven't.
Only if you've installed this knowledge base. If you've been up to date with patching, then you should see that down on the bottom right. And see, this is the issue, is that Microsoft has made this available. And on the good side of it, great. Free upgrade to the operating system, that's wonderful. They're making it available. They're automating the process. That's great. On the downside, if you had applications that are just not ready for Windows 10, and they are out there, if you have end users that are not ready for Windows 10, but they have the ability to upgrade, if you have security reasons, if you have a whole bunch of if you've given the end user administrative rights to the desktop, then you've given them the rights, but you have to somehow manage this appropriately. If you are already managing the updates through WSUS, you're covered. Although I would suggest to get rid of that, to unload that update and block it so your end users don't see this as going on. And if your end users don't have admin rights, better still, they can't run it. And you're going to see a lot more written online and elsewhere about this issue because it's not set. Yes, sir.
So if you reserve it, does the download happen in the background?
Yes,
On
sir.
a point of your choosing or just automatically?
It happens, I believe, when you are selected. So what's going to happen, it's not July 30th, all of a sudden 10 million people are going to start downloading Windows 10. So they're going to break it down into groups. I don't think there's going to be a rhyme or reason to it. That's, from our standpoint. And it will download first, and then it will ask you if you're ready to install.
You don't have any control over the download, but you have control over the install.
I believe you can, if you go into that link, I believe you can actually push that off and say, not ready for it, take me off the list temporarily. So you have some control over that.
Is that going to cause any problems with Microsoft Office?
Of course it will. Actually, let me rephrase that. It will create problems with old stuff and poorly written stuff. Why is that? Because the whole goal of new operating systems is to do things more effectively, do things better, do things in new ways, and do things more securely. And if you have software that's old and doesn't do those things, it's not going to work. And it's one of those where that's basically the way that is. Yeah. Brandon says, poorly written stuff, I presume like Windows? Ha ha ha. And actually, yeah, that's actually quite true from the standpoint, and watch how I turn his words against him. It's absolutely quite true from the standpoint of Windows originally was meant to be as productive and as fast as possible. Nobody gave any patooties about security. But they had to change it in midstream so that they actually cared about security. And they've also been updating it to take care of holes in terms of programming and production and all that. And a lot of developers actually took advantage of those holes because their programs worked faster when they did that. Yeah, games being a big part of it. Yes, sir.
Is there a central app or central piece of central program where you download it on your machine and say, tell me if this will work with 10?
Yes, there is not. So is there something that'll tell you whether the apps will work with 10? Unfortunately, no. And the reason being is because there is no ultimate, there is no Apple in this argument. You know, Microsoft doesn't require you to meet certain requirements in order to be able to distribute the application. So what there is as part of that download tool, there is an inspector that will take a look at your machine, and it'll look at it from a hardware standpoint as well as from a software standpoint for things like Office and for well-known applications. And usually the issue is if you're going to run Office 2007, yeah, that might have some problems. If you're going to run Office 2013, yeah, you may have to run a patch or two, but you'll be okay. But if you're going to run Label Maker Deluxe Pro 1.6 for this Epson LX800 dot matrix printer first introduced in 1994, maybe not.
Hey, I represent that.
You and me both. Yeah.
So if I have 200 machines, do I have to run around to each machine and do a reservation?
How are you licensing those 200 machines?
Individual.
So here's the issue. Yes.
Yes, your vacation.
Yep.
Or wait until August 1st to do that volume licensing.
Yeah. Or go volume licensing. I mean, and here's the thing. Microsoft is truly moving to a subscription level model. And this is one of the things. And so it's one of those things where they are basically saying, look, here's the program, here's the process. We're making it so it's very easy to switch over. Here's the other thing. For companies who have an expired license agreement, you're SOL. Okay? So if you did have a volume license agreement, which gives you free updates, and you decided not to renew 2 years ago or a year ago, you may be sitting there with Windows 8.1, you're not eligible. Okay? They only want people who bought the OEM software, and they want people who have active volume licensing. In the case of the OEM software, it's a go reserve and we'll cover you. In the case of the volume license software, it's just a volume license upgrade. There's no different. Do you have?
Will Windows 10 work with newer matrix printers?
Newer matrix printers. Okay, that's like a newer Matrix movie. Why would anyone want one? No, it's a Windows printer. As long as there's a Windows printer driver, to the best of my knowledge, if it runs on 8, it's going to run on 10. The exception's going to be any application. There are some exceptions because there are some features in Windows 8 or 8.1 that are being removed. I was going to save this for later. Microsoft Hearts is going away. Minesweeper and Solitaire will still be there, okay? But Hearts is gone. Anybody need a Kleenex? Also, floppy drives. The floppy drive, you will actually have to download and install an additional driver to have a floppy drive. How many of you are going to have problems because you have floppy drives that you're using? Well, your wife just ratted you out. But here's the issue. Every piece of software that you load, every driver that you add, that you install, that's sitting there active on your computer is eating up resources. So if 2% of the people have floppy drivers, let those 2% install an additional driver. The problem is we're so used to Microsoft being this, we're going to do everything we can so that everything you've ever bought in the history of man, we're going to have a card reader, attached to your PC so it can read your RPG-3 programming from 1974. I'm being a little sarcastic here with 78. You still have it? Okay.
You're stepping on toes here.
Yeah. It's my way. And I think Microsoft is being a little more aggressive on this one. And part of it is because there's such a tablet mentality with devices that are being purchased. And to have all of these technologies attached to the software that's running on a tablet, it doesn't make sense. What's that? Or a phone, yeah. So.
Is it all or nothing on a network? If I decide to try it on one, will it be able to talk to the Windows 7 machines
Absolutely.
on the network without
Absolutely.
problem?
The one thing I would say is if you have a 2003 server, then I would be concerned about putting a Windows 10 box on it. And I don't have any great reason for saying that. It just, that's a wide enough chasm of technology that I would be concerned about that. But otherwise, yes. Would I suggest to upgrade all of them to 10 at once? No. But I would, technically there's no reason why, especially with 7 and 8.
So on August 1st, I buy a new PC, and it ships with Windows 7.
Yeah, which point?
8. So it's too late for me to reserve, or is there going to be a workaround?
Yeah, you'll be able to, that will be included, and they will explain that better as they go on. But yeah, you'll be able to download and upgrade to 10.
Well, that would be that OEM reserve, right?
That would be the OEM reserve, but he's saying that if you bought it after the reserve. But part of the problem is that, like I said, the OEM guys, they haven't, and some will say they haven't really got behind Microsoft, and others will say Microsoft has not really brought them in yet on some of the licensing and all of that kind of thing. And my suspicion is, like everything else, there's a little bit of a mix between them. But it's in no one's interest to sell you a PC on August 1st that doesn't have Windows 10. Now, the exception I would say to that would be like a tier 3 manufacturer. I don't have a problem with saying that HP, Dell, Lenovo, any of those guys are going to have that issue. But when you start talking about the third, fourth, fifth tier party, because they may have a totally different licensing agreement, buying on the cheap and the like. So,
What about Surface tablets?
Surface tablets.
If you're getting like a 3 Pro,
Like this guy?
okay, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the key word is Pro. RT, no. Is anybody actually running a Windows RT tablet? Because you might have listened to some idiot about a month or so before they were released saying that they sounded like a good idea. And he was right-ish. So the RT tablets, yeah, Brandon. So the upgrade is not going to be there for the RT line. Okay, and you'll notice that we really didn't have an RT line in the Windows 10 lineup. Okay, so RT is your kind of SOL. And part of the issue on that is that the Windows 8 tablets are so freaking cheap. You can get a competent, decent Windows 8 Pro tablet for the price of an RT tablet. So why bother? Okay? For those of you who are missing, what the RT was an attempt for Microsoft to really compete head-on with the iPad and the Android tablets, who were using smaller processors, less powerful processors, who couldn't run the whole Windows. So it was a subset of the Windows process, or of the Windows operating system. Great idea, okay implementation, but the cost of hardware went down so much that it's just not worth it. So really, the RT is not, in my opinion, is not necessarily a good long-term solution at this point.
Do you have an idea of what the footprint is for like a Surface Pro? How much install space you would need? Is it as bad as Windows 8, or is it better?
I think I'm going to say it's better. I mean, you're welcome to take a look at mine because I've got it all on there, and I did an upgrade. No, I didn't do an upgrade. I did a rebuild. But you're welcome to take a look at it. I don't think it's that bad. It's as bad as 8.
With Office installed online, I'm using around 20 gig.
Okay.
So that's not much.
Yeah. Is there another? Yes, sir.
So, all right, so home user, got a PC, an Apple, iPad, all 7. Should this be done on those?
Here's the thing. Everybody, reserve. Reserve, reserve, reserve. That doesn't mean you have to do it.
But you're
Okay.
saying they don't tell you when they hit the button, so how do you?
Well, you get it doesn't automatically update you. It tells you when you're ready, and then you can basically choose to do it now or do it later. Okay? So, and quite honestly, remember, Microsoft tries things and then changes. And you could say they're, because they're flip-floppy, they can never keep a straight line, whatever, or that they learn from their mistakes and try to fix quickly. I'm not going to be surprised if they don't extend the 29th date. I'm not going to be surprised if they change the way that they're going to deploy it after the 29th. None of this stuff will surprise me. But I wouldn't bank on it. So in my opinion, register. If you work at a company that's not managing their networks, register every PC there. And that way they'll call us when they run into problems because all these people upgraded to Windows 10.
And you have to do that in each individual unit.
Yes.
And on phones too?
I have not heard, since phones aren't released yet, and it's going to be up to the carrier, I'm pretty sure the phones are going to be a different story. Phones are going to be, as you look at, you check for updates or the like, it'll just say it's available.
I have the Verizon the Eclipse, which is the, item. Should I reserve it on that piece of equipment?
I don't believe, right now, I don't believe that's what you need to do. That's just going to be an available update.
Not that it means anything, but on my Windows phone, which is with AT&T, I went for a year and a half with no firmware upgrades, and there have been 2 firmware upgrades in the last 3 weeks.
They're getting ready.
So they're getting ready.
Yeah.
But it's probably going to be like any other update. You'll get a notification when the update is available, and then you control when to actually install.
Well, that was like my Eclipse. There was an app I tried to upload and it wouldn't do it. And they said the codes were different and it just hasn't hit that yet. It just hasn't released the update for the Eclipse versus they already did it on the phone.
And some of the carriers are ridiculously slow on pushing these updates out. And that's, and keep in mind, Microsoft CEO just announced today or yesterday their absolute total commitment to the mobile platform a few days after they announced that they're laying off a number of people, mostly in the mobile platform area. So this is the one thing that everybody seems to agree on from the outside. This is Microsoft's last chance for mobile phones. This is it. If they can't make some serious inroads in this, forget it. That said, I was at a conference, a security conference for Sophos, who's our security we use for endpoint and other devices. And they are busily adding Windows Phone to their product mix. A year earlier at their conference, they were joking openly about Windows Phone. And I was asking, I talked to one of their head developer guys, and he said, what's the issue? Because they're selling like gangbusters in Europe. Europe is adapting because of the security that the Windows Phone has that the other guys don't. So don't count them out, but feel absolutely free to make jokes about them. You get the best of both.
The people that were laid off are still running Windows 3.1.
Kevin and I, for about half an hour in my office this morning, were going on about the 4 guys who were left, But they're really dedicated to mobile phone, and one guy's been working overtime, and it's because we find the fact that a lot of people losing their jobs funny.
Purchase after the 1 year is over?
What's that?
Do you have to buy it after the 1 year?
No, after 1 year, unless Microsoft makes a change, it's an upgrade like any other upgrade. So if you do not reserve your SOL, if a year later after you've reserved you haven't updated your SOL as it currently stands. Yes, sir.
Okay, don't laugh. I still have some machines on XP. For specialty equipment purposes, interfaces in healthcare don't always work. If I would want to go to 10. There's no path officially, but do I buy an upgrade to 7 for them and then sit on it until I can get to 10?
Ooh, well, first of all, if you have hardware that's XP compatible, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, right out of that gate, let me put it to you this way. And we have clients who are running XP. There's nothing wrong with that. No, I mean, seriously, especially from the manufacturing world, when you talk about somebody who has a $30,000 piece of equipment, and to upgrade that PC will cost them $500 for the PC and $30,000 for the equipment, I'm not going to win that argument. I'm not even going to try. So what we do is we basically say, okay, shut that down as far as other external access, internet access, and all that kind of fun stuff. That absolutely makes total sense. The issue, though, is that the cost of upgrading the hardware and the license is probably the least of your worries when you're looking at those kind of upgrades. And to me, the idea of having legacy hardware that's that old, in my opinion, would create more operational costs moving forward than just saying, let's just replace the darn thing. That said, if someone bought a license today of 7 or 8 and you reserved it, I think you'd be okay, but I'm not sure how much you'd save. Because really, a Windows license is a Windows license is a Windows license.
So when you get, let's say I get the upgrade, in a year they're gonna try to get more revenue out of me then by saying, well, we gotta upgrade again, or?
Good question, and we will get to that.
Okay.
And the answer,
That was one of the first things you said, is they're looking for different revenue streams.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, when you said, as far as hardware goes, the school I was teaching at had those HP PC 7700 little thin things. They were meant for XP. They put Windows 7 on them, unfortunately died.
Right.
But they're running Windows 8.1 great. Because, okay, so I'm just saying, if you have the RAM, probably the older stuff will run Windows 10.
And actually, Kevin and I were talking about this earlier this morning. The video requirements for 10 are lower than for 8. And the idea being is that 8 had that whole UI thing and had to go back and forth. 10 doesn't have that. 10 has it's integrated into the start menu. So the video requirements aren't quite as intense. And plus the whole idea of live tiles that automatically update, the only time you have them is when you click on the start button, those menus are up. So who gets the free upgrade? Again, Windows 7 SP1, okay? Patch your desktop. And if you're not upgrading to Windows 10, patch your desktop. And if you're going to delay it for a while, patch your desktop. If you patch your okay? Windows 8.1, not 8, 8.1, upgrade. Windows Phone 8.1, again, the timing is depending upon the carrier who you bought the phone from as well. If you bought Windows Enterprise, which is you had to get through a volume license, and that volume license is expired and you haven't renewed it, you're SOL. Why is that? Well, because you have all these other people who did renew. If they did renew and you got it for free, that would tick me off. Okay? But if you do have software assurance upgrade, you upgrade it as you traditionally would, meaning you, the IT organization, you have control over how it gets upgraded and where. And you go through this reserve, the site to go ahead and do the reservation. And the tool to help you do that is installed through the patching. Okay. This is a little bit of a smaller type, but there's a bunch of things that are going away. And most of them you're going to go, oh, that was in there? Again, just to drive the point home, Hearts is going away. Okay? So third-party developers, huge revenue opportunity there. Floppy drivers, DVDs. You're going to have to require separate software. The whole media center is going away. Floppy drive's going away. If you have Windows Live Essentials, there's a new version of OneDrive that's basically going to upgrade that. So there's some pieces, parts that are going away. Okay. By and large, they're essentially what I would call flotsam and jetsam that was off to the side. For Windows, were never really core parts of Windows, but these are 3 good sites, specifications. This is frequently asked questions. And then this one, how to stop it, IT people. This will block the knowledge base article from, or the patch from being downloaded and installed on desktops. Okay? Keep in mind, this is a work in progress. Because Microsoft is not going out there and telling people how to prevent Windows 10 updates from going on because they want people to upgrade. By the same token, if you don't want to, they're saying use WSUS, their upgrade tool. Why? Because they want you to use that. So it gets down to, they're going to explain how to use their tools to solve the issue. And that's absolutely fine. Oh, and this is a great updates. Windows 10 for the home user is no longer going to give you a choice about patching. The home user will be just like all the other devices that are out there for the consumer. It will patch when it has a patch. So Windows patching for the home user will automatically be applied when they are out there and available and you're connected to the internet. You can choose when to restart your system, but they will download and install automatically. Now, a lot of us are old enough to remember patching was like, okay, stuff is going to break and it's going to break frequently. Those days are pretty much gone. Yes, there have been a couple of issues. Recently, last year, I think there were a couple of Office updates that we really would rather have not gone out. But they were relatively easy to get rid of. And now it's much more common where you hear of, especially on a security level, where organizations have been hit because no one did patch for a long time. So this is actually, hate to say it, a good thing as far as I'm concerned. And this is also the home user. Then we have the long-term servicing branch, which is Microsoft's initials, which stand for we like these people. These are the companies who are essentially doing volume licensing, and they are patching from a central WSUS or other type of service. You essentially have the same level of control as you had before. You decide when to patch and how to patch. So you can decide how often and how frequently to patch your desktops through the WSUS interface. And we got the in-betweeners. In-betweeners, which are essentially your Windows Pro and enterprise education guys that are not controlled by WSUS. You can choose not to, and you can choose, and you know how you have both like service packs and then you have security patches? And you can get the security patches automatically and choose not to install these. Right now, the theory is, if you do not install patches for 6 months, you will stop getting the security updates. Why? Because Microsoft doesn't want to support, the security patch is written to patch software that is reasonably up to date. For them to come out with a security patch, yes, we'll apply the security patch to your software which you haven't upgraded in 2 years. They're trying to get away from we have to manage and support 80 versions of software and all sorts of little gimmies and getches and gotchas. They're trying to get away from that. Okay? So, for business organizations, you really have these two. Microsoft wants you to move to this, whether it be through WSUS or use a third party, but they're willing to help you with this. But they are going to get a lot more aggressive as far as their support and their patching for machines that aren't updated frequently. I don't think they've come out, Brandon, the question is whether or not they've come out with the cost for the embedded. I don't think they've come out with that yet.
That should still be free.
The Windows Embedded is free?
Well, the Raspberry Pi, the Internet of Things version of 10, I think that one's still going to be free.
Oh, okay. Brandon, Kevin's saying that the Internet of Things version of Windows should be free. Last he knew. And if it turns out it's not, you send the Microsoft people to Kevin. They don't have a date for the release yet of that. They have not released a specific date for the embedded or for the mobile versions of Windows. It's expected to be soon afterwards, but it's not down in stone yet. So thank you all very much. Thank those of you online. Thank anyone who's here invisible. Yay!